Welcome to Bosco Campus Vision. You are watching the campus television channel of Don Bosco College, Kottayam. This lecture is on the prescribed syllabus of 5th semester BA English Literature and Language. Paper is Literary Criticism. This is part 2 of the lecture on Aristotle, and we are going to discuss about the concepts. Aristotle's works, Rhetoric and Poetics, contain the literary criticism and are his lecture notes gathered together by his students and not a consciously developed full-fledged treatise. Apart from the Bible, no other work has appeared in more editions than Poetics. Poetics raises many important and fundamental critical issues and concepts. 4 of them are mimesis, catharsis, hamartia, spoudios. First, let us understand Aristotle's mimesis. Aristotle considered mimesis as the essence of fine art. Imitation is the objective representation of life or the imaginative representation of life. The Greek phrases were imitative arts and modes of imitation. Poetry imitates like other fine arts, but poetry is not a mere mimicry of surface reality. According to Plato, the world is an imperfect reflection of an ideal archetypal order. The world is a lower order of reality, and poetry, being an imitation of an imitation, is thrice removed from reality. Now, this is according to Plato. Aristotle rejects Plato's doctrine of ideas. For Plato, imitation implies copying and hence trivial and insignificant. It is creative and dynamic for Aristotle. The artist is the maker and his creations are imitations of human action, human character and human emotions. So what Aristotle says is, it is representation of life and not just copying that he has in mind. Okay, so for Plato, imitation implies copying. So that is why it is said as trivial and insignificant. But for Aristotle, it is creative and dynamic. So what Aristotle says is, it is something what is representing life. Okay, so the artist, who is the maker and the creator, is imitating of the human action, human character and human emotions. Okay. Now, the artist imitates things as they ought to be, and so art is free and voluntary activity of human consciousness, free from any utilitarian motives. Arts are different from crafts. Imitation bears relationship to learning and acquiring knowledge. Yes, we derive pleasure from the artistic representations we see into the life of things, and this is how experience in learning takes place. So art is a source of insight into life. Now, what Aristotle meant to say is, the poet applies his perception and tries to capture the soul of reality, which is something more than visible reality. This we can understand in this way. Suppose a poet writes a poem on a flowing river. When we read that poem, a very beautiful image of river is formed in our mind. But When we see that river in reality, we find that the river is not at all that beautiful as we have read in the poem, and it is very different from the image formed in our mind when we have read that poem. So the poet here applies his perception and tries to capture the soul of reality by making the river beautiful through his words in the poem. That means the poet added his perception and imagination to make the river more beautiful than actually it is. Hence, poetry is not a mere imitation of nature, but rather an imaginative reconstruction of the possibilities of nature. He argues that all poetry imitates, though it differs in terms of the form, content, and manner of imitation. According to Aristotle, men are naturally imitative. They enjoy imitating and learn by imitation. The content of literature is not everything. Its effect is mediated by the manner of its imitation or representation in its form. We do not simply react to what we are shown, but also to how we are shown it. Different kinds of poetry differ from each other in their manner of imitation. Even dramatic poetry is differentiated into tragedy and comedy accordingly, as it imitates men as better or worse. It is not the function of the poet to relate what has happened, but what may have happened, what is possible according to the law of probability or necessity. Poetry gives not the reality, but the idea of reality in the poet's mind. The poet selects and orders his material, and through the imaginative handling of reality reveals the laws of nature and the laws of being. So Aristotle gave a new dimension to the word imitation. It does not mean photographic reproduction, but poetic imitation for Aristotle is an imitation of inner human action. Next concept is catharsis. The word catharsis, meaning purification in Greek, is a term borrowed from medical terminology to explain the effect of tragic drama on an audience. Aristotle states that the purpose of tragedy is to arouse pity and fear, and thereby affect the catharsis of these emotions. Catharsis means the act or process of removing strong or violent emotions by expressing them through writing, talking, action, etc. So, through experiencing fear in a controlled situation, the spectator's anxieties are aroused, and through a sympathetic identification with the tragic hero, his insight and outlook are enlarged. Aristotle seems to suggest that when we witness tragic scenes of confusion, turmoil, sin, and suffering on the stage, we experience a cleansing of the mind. Yes, and when the mind is cleaned, purification happens, purgation happens. Okay. According to Samson Agonistes, that is written by Milton, we go out of the theatre calm of mind, all passions spent. Means when we see a movie inside a theatre, or when we watch a drama on the stage, the different tragic scenes of confusion, turmoil, sin and suffering takes the emotions to the highest level and purifies it, cleanses it. So there happens a cleansing of mind, and all the passions are completely removed. All the excess emotions or violent emotions that was there in the mind are completely removed. So what happens? That purification happens. So your mind turns calm. In chapter 6, Aristotle defines tragedy as an imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, in language embellished with each kind of artistic ornament. The several kinds of being found in separate parts of the play in the form of action, not of narrative, through pity and fear, effecting the proper purgation of these emotions. Yes, let us understand this thoroughly. So, whatever is presented by a poet or a writer is an imitation of an action, and that is something serious, and whatever is presented is completely presented, and it has a certain magnitude. Yes, it has a certain intensity, and that is presented in an ornamental language. It is a kind of artistic creativity of the author or the poet. Yes, he uses embellished languages, he uses ornamental languages to present the action or the emotion that is there in the mind. Yes, and this what Aristotle says defines as the several kinds of being found in separate parts of the play. So the play that is performed in different parts of that play, you can find several kinds of emotions. So there are several kinds of emotions that is there in different parts of the play, and that is in the form of action. Yes, it may not be a narrative, and sometimes there is sadness, sometimes there is pity is arose, sometimes a fear factor is added, and this things are added in order to affect the purgation, or in order to bring about the process of catharsis, the process of purification of all these excess emotions in the viewer's mind or the audience mind. So the process of catharsis or purgation turns the audience mind calm and serene. Now, according to Plato, the twin emotions of pity and fear are dangerous and unhealthy. Okay. Now, pity is aroused by the magnitude of the suffering undergone by the protagonist, and terror or fears by the knowledge that tragic suffering and fate overtake one similar to us. This is the awareness that is brought home to us when we witness a tragedy. Pity and fear describe a process of moral and imaginative identification with the agent. When we come out of this involvement, we find ourselves inwardly transformed and feel a state of release and serenity. Catharsis describes these process or experience. The meaning of the term catharsis can be highlighted as therapeutic, moral, structural, and intellectual. First, let us understand the therapeutic interpretation. The therapeutic meaning, also called purgation, that is similar to the homeopathic system of medicine that holds the view that the right cure for an illness is administering an agent similar to the disease. It means that by presenting the emotions of pity and fear to the audience is cured of the excess of these emotions. Tragedy effects catharsis by generating the very conditions that it seeks to cure. Those who are in a state of external agitation pass into the state of serenity on listening to music. Next is moral interpretation, and this is similar to the therapeutic and is termed as purification. The purpose of tragedy is to purify the emotion of the audience by disciplining it and refining it by removing the excess. Catharsis suggests the sense of purification. We normally shrink from the scene of violence and crime in real life or react to them with a feeling of horror and revulsion. True tragedy unfolds an inner process. It prevents the protagonist in a state of clash at three levels: clash with oneself, with others, and with forces beyond one's control and knowledge. The apparent destruction of virtue, goodness, and innocence strikes terror, and ultimately the good, virtuous, and innocent people may be destroyed. But the value of goodness, virtue, and innocence remains sound and secure. The moral foundation may be shaken, but it only becomes stronger and deeper. Now, it is the awareness that produces the feeling of subtle, indefinable joy or exaltation and serenity for an audience. F. L. Lucas remarked, "Theatre is not a hospital. Tragedy goes much beyond a clinical or surgical function. It is productive of pleasure springing from spontaneous compassion for the protagonist who enters a larger, nobler world. Tragedy leads to an awakening, resulting into an enlargement of our spirit. The experience or end product of witnessing tragedy is similar to the joy and purification resulting from our participation in a ritual." Next is structural interpretation. It is a process by which the protagonist can absolve from himself of the supposed evils he has perpetrated, so that the audience can respond with emotions of pity and fear appropriate for the occasion and be willing to free the protagonist. Next is intellectual interpretation or intellectual clarification. Says catharsis is a kind of insight experience. It is an aesthetic experience that consists in the perception of coherence, a totality of significance underlying a series of incidents. Therefore, pleasurable and not painful as the events would be if seen in real life. The pleasure is similar to that arising from the process of learning. The learning process lies in the discovery of the relationship between the particulars of the plot and the universals they signify that impart coherence and totality to the particulars. Next, this experience leads to clarification and enlargement and deepening of awareness. Then, according to Aristotle, the character of a wise, virtuous man is that he feels emotions like fear, anger, pity, pleasure, etc. at the right time with reference to the right people, right object, with right motive and in the right way. This is the principle of moderation. Nothing should be in excess. Catharsis obeys this principle. And here drama is a stimulus. It arouses over emotions from potentiality to activity. The result of catharsis is emotional balance or equilibrium. It involves restoration of emotional health. In this lecture, we have discussed the two concepts put forward by Aristotle, that is mimesis and catharsis. Do the given exercise and submit on time. Thank you.